It was 11:47 p.m. on a quiet Texas highway. The road was nearly empty, except for the soft rumble of an old GMC pickup, faded blue paint, dented bumper, and rust creeping across its hood. Inside sat Elijah Washington, 75, black, alone. His hands were firm on the wheel, skin weathered from time and battle, eyes sharp with quiet dignity. He wasn't speeding, he wasn't swerving, yet the flashing red and blue lights behind him lit up the night like he'd just escaped a crime scene. The truck rolled to a calm stop. From the patrol car stepped a young white officer, maybe mid-20s, posture full of authority he hadn't earned yet. He tapped his flashlight against the glass. "License and registration, sir." Elijah looked at him, then slowly reached toward the glove compartment. His voice was calm. "You want to tell me why I was pulled over?" The officer didn't blink. "Just routine, sir. Late night check. What's in the truck bed?" "Groceries, tools, a few things a man might need. You mind telling me what's suspicious about that?" "Just following procedure, sir. You match a description." Elijah gave a tired smile. "Black man. Old truck. That about right?" The officer's jaw tightened. "Step out of the vehicle, please." "I don't consent to a search, officer. There's nothing illegal in here." "We'll be the judge of that." Another squad car pulled up behind, tires crunching gravel. Two more officers. One shined a light into the truck. The other placed a hand on his holster. "Sir, step out now." Elijah sighed and turned off the ignition. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He opened the door and stepped out slowly. "I've done nothing wrong. I served this country longer than you've been alive." One of the officers circled to the back of the truck. "What's in the box?" "It's personal." "Sir, I'm going to need to open that." Elijah stepped slightly between the officer and the wooden box sitting on the seat. "This isn't ordinary cargo, son. It's not yours to see." The morning sun in Millfield didn't rise like in the cities. It drifted in, quiet, golden, and slow. Elijah Washington's house sat on the edge of town, surrounded by trees that had stood longer than most of the people in it. A single-story wooden frame home, white paint chipped by time. Porch creaked under his weight every morning as he sat in the same spot, with the same black coffee in the same rusted tin cup. Neighbors called him Old Man Eli. Some respected him, most ignored him. He didn't mind. He didn't expect much from the world anymore. Twice a week, always Tuesday and Friday, Elijah drove that old truck into town. Same grocery store, same clerk, same list. Loaf of bread, 2 cans of beans, 1 gallon of milk, paid in exact change. No small talk, no complaints. Oh, people wondered what his story was. Some said he used to be in the Army. Others said CIA, but no one ever asked, and he never offered. He didn't own a smartphone, didn't trust banks, didn't care for politics. The town had moved on without him, and he let it. Inside his home, the walls were lined with nothing but silence. No photos, no medals, no flags. Only a single box locked inside a dusty cabinet. That morning, Elijah opened that cabinet. His hands trembled, not from weakness, but from memory. He reached for a small, hand-carved wooden box. The surface was worn, but the edges had been carefully sanded. It wasn't fancy, but it had been protected. He placed the box gently on the table and sat beside it. Then, with both hands, he opened it. Inside was a silver insignia wrapped in cloth. Not shiny, not polished, just real. Below it, a folded letter, creased, yellowed, and sealed with wax. Elijah looked at it like it breathed. He whispered something under his breath. Maybe a name, maybe a prayer. Then he wrapped the insignia back in cloth, placed the letter on top, and locked the box again. He didn't eat breakfast, didn't turn on the lights. He walked out to the truck, placed the box on the passenger seat, and started the engine. That truck wasn't just metal and bolts. It was his witness. It had been there for every mile of silence, every mile of loss. As he pulled out of the driveway, a child down the street pointed at the truck. "Hey, Mama, is that the war truck?" The mother gently tugged his hand. "Don't stare, baby. That man's seen things you wouldn't understand. The truck rolled forward. Slow, steady. The way a man moves when he knows exactly where he's going and exactly why it can't wait anymore. The checkpoint sat lonely at the edge of County Line Road, where asphalt met dust and authority often overstepped its bounds. It wasn't a common stop, mostly used during high alerts or political nonsense. But tonight, the barrier arm was down, and the patrol car had its lights flashing. Elijah's truck rolled up slowly, headlights dim, engine humming like an old blues song. An officer stepped forward, young, white, nervous, but eager to show he was in charge. "Evening, sir. Gonna need you to step out and pop the trunk for inspection." "Oh." Elijah cut the engine and leaned out slightly. "Inspection? This ain't the border, son. Standard procedure tonight. What's your business on the road this late?" Elijah glanced toward the rearview mirror. Empty road, quiet town. "Delivering something that's not yours to see." The officer didn't appreciate the tone. He motioned to his partner, who stepped out from the shadows with a flashlight already aimed. "Step out of the vehicle, sir." Elijah's hand stayed on the wheel. "I don't consent to a search. There's no cause." "Sir, you're refusing a lawful request. That can be taken as non-compliance. Refusing suspicion isn't a crime. Not yet." The second cop's light caught the edge of the wooden box sitting on the seat. His voice dropped. "What's that?" "That's mine." "Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time. You can ask all you want. The answer's still no." The flashlight hit Elijah's eyes like an interrogation lamp. He didn't flinch. One of the cops reached for the door. "Touch that box and you'll regret it." The officer paused, just long enough for backup to arrive. Another cruiser pulled in, then another. Red and blue lights painted the dark like a carnival gone wrong. The first officer stepped closer, hand now resting on his holster. "We've got a situation here. What you've got is an old man, doing no harm, going about his business. Then you won't mind stepping out and letting us confirm that." Elijah's hands slowly raised, palms open. "I've got nothing to hide, but you've got no right to look." That's when they moved. Rough hands pulled him from the seat. His knees hit gravel. Cold steel wrapped around his wrists like betrayal. "Sir, you're being detained for refusing inspection at a federal checkpoint." The wooden box was taken from the seat without care. One of the younger officers laughed. "It's just a damn box." Elijah said nothing. His eyes didn't blink. He was loaded into the back of the cruiser. The truck left behind under flashing lights like a crime scene. At the station, they ran his name. Washington Elijah. No priors, no outstanding warrants. Just a long, silent record. But then the system flagged something. Not a warrant, not a crime, a code. Red. Classified. The screen flashed an alert. Military cross-check. Department of Defense. Eyes only. The booking officer frowned. "What the hell is this?" He flagged down the shift supervisor. "Something's off with this one, sir. We tried to print him, but the system keeps redirecting. No details, just a request to pause processing and await clearance." The supervisor shrugged. "Run it through again, probably a glitch." They brought Elijah into the holding area. Metal bench, cold room, one flickering light overhead. No one asked him questions. No one offered him water. He just sat there, back straight, eyes forward, like he was still standing guard at some post nobody remembered. One of the officers who cuffed him earlier passed by and looked it through the glass. "He ain't said a word since we brought him in. Maybe he's crazy. Or maybe he knows something we don't." One rookie officer stepped into the evidence room and opened the wooden box with a pen. Inside was a cloth wrap, neatly folded. Underneath, a sealed envelope. Old, faded, marked with a symbol he didn't recognize. He opened it. The words inside were handwritten. "Return to Precinct 17. Do not allow inspection. For military eyes only." His voice cracked as he read it out loud. "Sir, I think we messed up." Back in the holding cell, Elijah sat perfectly still, as if he knew everything was just getting started. Maybe he's crazy. Or maybe he knows something we don't. One rookie officer stepped into the evidence room and opened the wooden box with a pen. Inside was a cloth wrap, neatly folded. Underneath, a sealed envelope. Old, faded, marked with a symbol he didn't recognize. He opened it. The words inside were handwritten. Return to Precinct 17. Do not allow inspection. For military eyes only. His voice cracked as he read it out loud. Sir, I think we messed up. Back in the holding cell, Elijah sat perfectly still, as if he knew everything was just getting started. Inside the evidence room, Officer Daniels stared at the strange box like it might explode. His partner stood beside him, silent now. The joking was over. They'd both seen military property before, but this wasn't like anything they'd handled. It wasn't just old, it was sacred. The insignia inside wasn't standard issue. It was silver, weathered, but its design was sharp, almost surgical. A crest with wings, a lightning bolt, and one phrase etched into the side. Echo valor, we wait in silence. Daniels whispered under his breath. What the hell is this? His partner pointed to the envelope again. Look at the seal. That's not local police. That's military intelligence. And old school. Daniels looked toward the hallway. We need to tell the captain. Now. Captain Monroe was standing near the booking desk when they reached him. Sir, you're going to want to see this. It's not normal. He raised an eyebrow. It's a box, Daniels. You cuffed an old man over a box. Not just any box. Daniels handed him the envelope. Monroe opened it, reading aloud. Return to Precinct 17 for official military retrieval. Do not tamper. Original insignia of Shadow Echo Unit. Last recovered by Commander E. Washington. Fall of Saigon, 1975. He stopped. Commander. The officer standing nearby frowned. Wait, that old man's name is Elijah Washington, right? Daniels nodded slowly. Sir, I think we detained someone we shouldn't have. Monroe walked toward the glass window of the holding area. Elijah was still sitting, back straight, hands calm in his lap, like he'd done this before. Monroe's voice lowered. That man's posture. That's military. High-ranking, too. You don't sit like that unless you've been trained for years. A desk officer walked in with a pale face and a laptop. Captain, the system pinged again. Not a criminal match, an encrypted flag. I contacted regional dispatch. They told me not to proceed, not to book him, not to release him. Monroe's face tightened. On whose orders? Department of Defense. They said stand by. No questioning, no statements. They're dispatching a military response team. How soon? Under an hour. Another officer scoffed. All this over a box? No, not a box, a promise. Daniels turned and faced the captain. Sir, the insignia inside. It's custom. High-rank special ops. Unit name doesn't exist in any database I could find. The young rookie who had cuffed Elijah looked around, now visibly nervous. So, who is he? Nobody answered. At the front entrance, an officer stepped in from outside. You all need to see this. They walked to the security monitors. 3 black SUVs had pulled into the street. No sirens, no lights, no license plates. Just matte black, silent machines idling like predators. The officer stared at the screen. They're not stopping. Inside the cell, Elijah finally blinked. He slowly stood up. The room outside buzzed in low murmurs and tension. Officers stared at the monitors, shifting on their feet. Nobody laughed now. Nobody questioned. Elijah's voice came from the doorway, calm as water. They're early. Monroe stepped toward him. Mr. Washington, who exactly are you? Elijah looked him in the eye. I'm a man who kept a promise, one the government forgot. But I didn't. Captain Monroe paused. And what's in the box? Something that belongs to men who never made it home. He stared through the glass as the black SUVs slowly turned into the lot and aligned themselves in perfect formation. 3 in front, 3 behind. Military precision. No movement wasted, no engine shut off. No words exchanged. Then all at once their headlights went dark. Only the station lights remained, flickering above like a bad omen. A long silence filled the room. Every officer was now alert. Some instinctively fixed their uniforms. Monroe exhaled. All right. No one moves. No one talks unless spoken to. Whoever just showed up, they're not here to ask for permission. The sound of boots hit the pavement before anyone even saw them. Sharp, coordinated, and silent. From each black SUV stepped two officers, military police by the look of their uniforms. Helmets, tactical vests, precision in every step. They didn't speak. They didn't look around. They moved like they already knew the layout of the station. Inside, officers backed away from the windows. Some straightened their uniforms, unsure why their hands were suddenly sweating. The front doors opened. In stepped a man in a clean, pressed uniform with 3 silver stars on his collar. His posture radiated command. He didn't scan the room, he owned it. The officer at the front desk swallowed hard. Name, sir? General Thomas Harrington, United States Marine Corps. I'm here for Elijah Washington. Captain Monroe stepped forward immediately. I'm Captain Monroe, sir. We have him in holding. I wasn't made aware of this. You weren't supposed to be. The general didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence said everything. Is the item secured? Yes, sir. We didn't tamper with it, just processed it for evidence. You processed it? Yes. I mean, initially, before the alert came through. Sir, if I may ask, who is Mr. Washington? The general looked him dead in the eyes. You didn't detain a suspect, Captain. You intercepted a living piece of military history. Monroe turned pale. General Harrington moved past him, flanked by 2 MPs. As they reached the holding room, Elijah was already standing, hands behind his back, shoulders squared, eyes forward. When the general stepped in, something unexpected happened. He stopped. He stood at attention. And then he saluted. Commander Washington. Elijah returned the salute, crisp and silent. General. The officers watching from behind the glass were frozen. This wasn't some retired sergeant. This man had commanded salutes from generals. It's an honor, sir. The general's voice softened. The honor is mine. Elijah nodded. You came yourself? I had to. They wouldn't have believed it without me. General Harrington looked at Monroe. We'll be escorting Commander Washington to Andrews Air Force Base. I'll need access to your evidence room immediately. Of course, sir. The general turned back to Elijah. You sure you're ready for this? I've waited long enough. The MPs collected the box and the sealed envelope with careful hands. No rush, no confusion. Everything was done with reverence. Captain Monroe followed them down the hallway, still in shock. The young rookie who had handcuffed Elijah earlier leaned to a fellow officer and whispered, I thought he was just a stubborn old man. Now he's got the whole damn Pentagon outside. As the convoy prepared to leave, officers lined up near the front desk without being asked. Some stood at attention. Some just stared in silence. General Harrington paused before stepping out. To clarify, Captain, the insignia your team seized, that belongs to Echo Valor, an elite recon team that operated in Vietnam. Officially, they never existed, but they saved lives no one else could, and they died for it. Commander Washington here? He was their CO, the only survivor of the fall of Fire Base Orion. Monroe felt like the floor had shifted under him. I had no idea. You weren't supposed to. Harrington turned to Elijah. Ready to go home, Commander? Elijah nodded once. Yeah, but I'll drive. Truck's waited this long. Seems fair to let it finish the trip. The general smiled. Understood. And just like that, the man they'd arrested hours earlier walked out with a full military escort. Not in handcuffs, not with apologies, but with respect. The sun hadn't even risen, but Andrews Air Force Base was already alive with quiet movement. Soldiers lined the interior roadways. Security checkpoints cleared, and a black stage stood in front of an American flag, big enough to be seen from the sky. At the center of it all stood Elijah's old truck, washed, waxed, and placed between 2 military-grade transport vehicles. Its rust and dents hadn't been removed. On Elijah's request, they stayed. They're part of the story, he'd said. Inside a secure wing of the base, Elijah sat quietly as a military aide gently pinned a row of long-delayed medals to his dress uniform, medals that had been locked in files so classified, not even the Pentagon's own historians had clearance to request them until now. General Harrington stood nearby. They asked me if you'd want to make a speech. Elijah chuckled softly. I've said what I needed to say. I came to return something. I didn't expect a parade. Well, Commander, sometimes honoring the past requires noise, even when the man who lived it preferred silence. Outside, news cameras rolled. Reporters whispered the story that had just begun to leak online. Old black man mistakenly detained, turns out to be secret war hero. Echo Valor commander resurfaces after 47 years. Military honors, forgotten veteran after police stop. Meanwhile, back at the precinct, the atmosphere was different. Captain Monroe stood at the briefing room, holding the wooden plaque that Elijah left behind. It was small, simple, brass. Elijah Washington, keeper of promises, 47 years. The rookie officer who had cuffed him stared at it like it was a grave marker. He could have yelled at me. He didn't even raise his voice. Captain Monroe nodded. He didn't need to. His life already said enough. Another officer murmured, We never even asked him what he did. We just assumed. That's the problem, isn't it? Monroe placed the plaque on the wall of the evidence room, right above where the box had once sat. He turned to his team. Let this be a reminder. Rank isn't always worn, and some people carry more history in their silence than we'll ever understand. Back at the base, the ceremony began. Chairs filled with military brass, surviving families of lost soldiers, and media now alert to something bigger than any headline could capture. Elijah stood beside the President of the United States, who extended his hand not for a handshake, but for a salute. Elijah returned it, crisp, direct, full of weight. A podium stood before him. He didn't walk to it right away. He took his time. He looked out across the crowd, not at the generals or the press, but at a small group of women and men holding photos of soldiers long gone. His team. He adjusted the mic only once. Honor doesn't live in medals or headlines. It lives in what we do when no one is watching. It lives in promises made and kept. He stepped back. That was all he had to say. And it was more than enough. As the national anthem played, the camera cut briefly to the truck. A small U.S. flag had been placed near the windshield. Inside, tucked into the glove compartment, was the original envelope, faded but whole, still sealed, still marked, return with honor. Later that night, Elijah stood at a quiet memorial wall. Names were etched into stone. No ranks, just names. He traced each one with his finger. He whispered, We made it. A young officer approached. Sir, would you like an escort back to town? Elijah looked at him and smiled. No need. Truck knows the way. He climbed into the same seat he'd sat in for decades, started the engine, and rolled down the windows. This time, no flashing lights followed. No questions, just silence and respect. The road back to Millfield was long, quiet, and different than it had ever felt before. Elijah didn't drive fast. He didn't need to. Small towns have their own rhythm. News travels slower, but it runs deeper when it lands. By the time he crossed the county line, people were already outside. Families stood on porches. Flags were raised. And the same checkpoint where he had once been handcuffed was now cleared with officers standing at attention. One of them saluted as Elijah passed. He returned the gesture with 2 fingers raised from the wheel. At the diner where he rarely stopped, kids now stood holding homemade signs. Welcome home, Commander Washington. Thank you for keeping the promise. Real hero. He nodded politely, not slowing down. A few blocks away, the corner store clerk wiped his eyes. I never even knew his name, he whispered. All this time, he was carrying a war. By the time he reached his driveway, the sun had started to fall again. The truck came to a stop exactly where it always did. Same spot, same creaking gravel, same whispering trees. But everything was different. He stepped out, still wearing the dress uniform, metals shining dull gold in the amber light. The door creaked as he stepped inside. Quiet. Just how he liked it. But then came a knock. Not urgent, not official, just a gentle tap on wood. He opened the door. Standing there were 5 people, a woman in her 60s, a man holding a framed photo, a teenager with a journal in his hands. We're the families. From the names, Echo Valor. They didn't say more. They didn't need to. Inside, they sat around the living room. Stories were shared, pictures passed between hands, names spoken aloud for the first time in decades. One woman placed her hand over the insignia that now sat inside a glass case near the window. He never made it home, but I think this matters more than a flag on a coffin. Elijah nodded. He didn't say much, but they could feel what he carried. After they left and the house fell quiet again, Elijah walked out to the truck one last time. A brass plaque had been installed on the dashboard. Elijah Washington, Keeper of Promises, 47 years. He placed his hand over it and exhaled. That night, a local reporter caught him outside the diner, coffee in one hand, cap pulled low. "Sir, what does it feel like to finally be recognized?" Elijah looked out at the empty street. "Recognition isn't why good men do difficult things. We do them because they're right, whether anyone's watching or not." The reporter waited for more, but Elijah just smiled, nodded, and stepped into the truck. The engine roared to life like it always had. A little older, a little louder, but still moving forward. And as the truck pulled off into the night, taillights fading beneath the trees, one thing was clear: some men carry weapons. Some carry medals, but a rare few carry promises long enough to become legends.